Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here today for the first Conversations at the Culver in 2023. We are very proud to be able to present this program in partnership with UCR Arts and with thanks to the California Arts Council and the City of Riverside for supporting our events. Inlandia Institute founded the Black Voices Steering Committee after the terrible murder of George Floyd back in 2020. And I am very proud to be able to present these programs as part of the new Blacklandia event series. Inlandia Institute also would like to recognize and acknowledge that the land that we are on belongs to the Cahuilla, Tongva, Luiseno, and Serrano peoples, and all of their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. Inlandia Institute respectfully acknowledges our responsibility to the original and current caretakers of this land, water, and air. Today, the Inlandia region is home to many indigenous peoples from all over the world, and we express our gratitude to them for allowing this opportunity to live and work on their homelands. So I am Katie Porter. I am Executive Director of Inlandia Institute, and I have with us today three wonderful poets who are also dads, and they are here to tell you about their experience of being here as Black dads who write, and in this case specifically poetry. And we also have one of our children here too, so hi. So with us we have James Coates. Say hi, James.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. James is the author of Midnight and Mad Dreams. And then we have with us to his left, Brandon Allen.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hey. Brandon is the author of This Little Boy. And then we have with us Eric DeVaughnn. Hey.
Hi, everyone.
And I know Eric is the author of two books, and the second one has dragon in the title, but I have only just learned of it. The Beauty of Dragons.
The Beauty of Dragons, yes.
So I am excited to hear about these books and their trajectories as writers and dads. So welcome, James, Brandon, and Eric.
Thank you, Katie. So the idea behind this particular panel was, for the last several months, I have been working on a YA novel about a father and son and their relationship, a novel in verse titled How to Raise a Boy. And through that experience, I realized how much fathers are left out of the conversation of caregiving, and how, despite the maybe stereotypes or stigmas behind being a Black dad, many of the Black dads I know are present and active in their children's lives. And I don't feel like that gets enough attention or enough conversation about the great job that they're doing. And so I want to get some Black dads that I knew that were not only excellent fathers, but excellent writers as well, who work in the community and do work for not just adults and poets, but they work with children and education. And so that's really important to me. So let's start with introduction. So all the way on my left, we have Eric DeVaughnn. Eric, if you want to tell the audience a little bit about what you write about, and about being a dad, maybe how old your child is, or how many children you have. Introduce them a little bit.
Thank you. I'll start with the last part of that because that's the easiest. There shall be none other. There is only one. There shall be no more. I have one daughter. She's 6. Adorable. But I'm sure all of us think our children are adorable. I've been writing practically my entire life, but really started focusing on and taking poetry seriously around 2015 and being intentional with it. And I started off writing on social issues, focusing on writing from the spoken word world, right? So a lot of performance, a lot of demonstrative, over-the-top action. Not necessarily over-the-top, that's not fair to say. But focus more on the performance side. When my daughter was born, kind of changed what I write about. My focus was largely on how does this new person in my life, this new part of my life, and well, this is what we're going to be talking about though, so let me not jump ahead. I write a lot about grief, and I've been writing the last few years about being a father. Was there something in there else in there that you wanted to?
So, one daughter, around what age?
She is 6. She just turned 6 in November.
6?
Still 5,
Okay.
yes.
And then as far as writing-wise, I know that you have co-founded a press. You want to share a little bit about that?
I have Innate Divinity Books. We've helped people edit, publish, format, design, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 25, 30 books since 2017. We've recently begun publishing local authors, trying to focus on being more deliberate about that. And our latest author is actually not in an empire, it's out in LA, but we've got a couple forthcoming projects right now. So working with a new poet, and we've got an anthology that we're still finishing up. Yeah.
Right. And then you're also an educator, so you teach in schools in San Bernardino, right?
Absolutely. Teach in San Bernardino. I was an assistant PE teacher for 24 years, and finally got hired as a teacher. This is my 2nd year. When I finish this year, I will be tenured and have a full spot, right? Yes, clear credential. Yay. You feel me? Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I do work with little people. Interesting thing is, I know I'm the oldest one up here. I didn't anticipate having children. I got to around 39 and I decided officially, I don't think I'm gonna have kids. I'm okay with that. I work with elementary age students, so they're like my little people anyway. I was like, oh, you're my kid right now, and now PE's over. Go ahead and go back to class. But I'm also an uncle 15 times over, I think. So I decided I'll just gather the love from around me.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah, that role, right, of uncle and being like a positive masculine figure in their lives is important as well.
I agree. Fortunately, I think it's, for some of us, more preferable to be in the uncle position, to where you can impart wisdom and give some guidance, but you don't have to ultimately raise them and be responsible for the final outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool uncle. Cool.
Cool uncle, exactly.
All right. Brandon.
So, I don't know if you knew this, but my name is Brandon. Surprise. I'm super excited to be here. Some of the things that I get to do, number one, is I get to be a father to this young lady right here. Her name is Sinai Joy Allen. She is 10 years old, and she has my heart in a stronghold. She's amazing. Being a father wasn't something that I expected, at the time that it happened, but it was something that I had to learn to become responsible in, and the journey has grown me, has matured me, and has effectively allowed me to better do the things that I do on a consistent basis. Some of the things that I get to do is I work with youth. You pretty much in every aspect of in my life. So I am the program director for a nonprofit called Rescue a Generation. What we do is we get to life coach students back into academic and behavioral success. We're currently in contracted in about 7 different school districts in the Inland Empire, and to the sum total of about 40 schools, to where we get the chance to build relationships, do assemblies, interventions, to where we're doing a 10-week success curriculum that focuses on social emotional learning, and just build relationships and see students get to the level of success that they deserve. I also, through my poetry, have started what's called a youth writers camp, to where I get to walk students through as well as social emotional curriculum, to where I'm teaching them how to manage their emotions, utilizing and partnering with mental health nonprofits that get to do like actual sit downs and discussions, as well as facilitating writing through coping techniques. They're using writing as a coping technique, to where they get the chance to actually use and write poetry. And at the end of it, we publish all of the teenagers. So so far during my program, I've published about 15 youth. So that's really dope to watch these kids who you never would think, who would never imagine becoming published authors, become published by telling their stories and healing through their process and managing their own emotions. So it's really something amazing I get to do. And then, I mean, I don't know, I speak, I perform, I travel, I get to train others in telling their stories. I get to build relationships through mental health, through connecting, through poetry, through impacting communities, through serving, in many aspects. But then I always get to show up and be dad. Right now, me and her, we're in to win it. You know, I'm on the full-time process, so I'm loving that journey as well.
Thank you, Brandon. You're doing a lot.
You know, too much. You know, sleep comes in there sometimes.
Yeah, but the work is important. It is. It's important work. Like, it really does make a difference in children's lives, young people's lives. You know, that people are out there that care about them, trying to, impart that wisdom. For me, I have one son. He is 15 years old, 15 and a half. And I've been the primary caregiver for him for about 11 years. And so it's always been kind of just us doing our thing. And you take that, it has its ups and its downs when you're like, have to, they're sick, you have to do all the caring for them, or back to school night, and working around your work schedule to make sure you make it to their events and ball games and everything.
When you got to pick them up from school because they're sick, and you in the middle of work, and
oh my goodness. I know. There was 1 month, it was like 3 times they called me, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Like, I'm dad, I got to do it. So I know what that's like. And then also, as far as writing goes, I have written 4 collections of poetry. Most recently put out was Midnight and Mad Dreams through World Stage Press out in Los Angeles. And Brandon is also published through World Stage Press as well. He is a teacher with the Community Literature Initiative for the Inland Empire, helping teach authors how to publish their poetry books. I'm also part of that program. I co-teach the alumni class for people that have went through the program, and they want some more education and would like to stay in community. And so that's a little bit about my poetry, but let's get into the question of like dad's writing. So Eric, let's start with you, because you mentioned it a little bit earlier. How has fatherhood impacted your writing?
That's a huge question. Interestingly enough, the first poem that I wrote about fatherhood, I wasn't a father. I was commissioned to write a poem for Father's Day, and I was not yet a father. We were expecting, but it was probably about 7 months before she was born. And I ended up looking at it through the lens of how teachers are also superheroes in our role, as in loco parentis. Right? Um, but once my daughter was here, I saw it from a completely different perspective, very personal, you know, and I noticed that there's so many things that I'd see all the time, and they didn't really impact me until my daughter was born. I'll give an example, and maybe I'll read the poem later. In fact, it's the title of my book, The Beauty of Dragons. That poem came from, I was on my way to work one day, and I saw a little memorial of someone who passed away. It's up against a tree on a curb somewhere, and there was a man there. And I thought about what his story could be, but I thought of it from a perspective of myself as a father. Will I ever find myself standing in front of a memorial? And that became a fear for me. There's so much that I have to protect her for. Started thinking about my own mortality. How old am I? My daughter was born, I was 41. And I'm thinking, wow, how much of my life is she gonna be here? Am I gonna be here? How much of her life am I going to be here for? And so that theme runs throughout some of my work, you know, really just kind of looking at different life situations through this new lens of how was this going to impact my daughter.
Oh, so you have written specific poems to your child?
Absolutely. I wrote a book for her. Yes. So I've written poems to her, about her, for her, but I also wrote a book because the idea that I had was, just in case I'm not around for whatever reason, I want to be able to say the things that a father needs to say and leave it for her. So I wrote a book. It's a letter that's broken up, and then there are poems in between these sections of the letter. And while I hope people enjoy it, it is available. I wrote it for her. So hopefully one day she'll read it and understand some of the things I'd like her to carry with her as she gets older.
That's beautiful. Brandon, same question to you. How has fatherhood impacted your writing?
Fatherhood impacted the man I am. And when the man I was changed, everything that came out of that man changed. So the way that I thought, the way that I processed, the way that I engaged community, the way that I loved, the way that I entreated people, the man changed. So my writing changed, my speaking changed, my thoughts changed. Like when you're taking on a responsibility for somebody else, or you have to learn selfless love. Yes. And that type of like enduring selfless love, like long suffering type of love is hard to keep anything about yourself the same. So in that thought process, it's morphed how I allowed myself to process any of the type of poetry. So now the level of empathy or care in my writing has shifted. The level of endearment or presence in my writing has shifted. When I think about people, I don't just think about the person or the impact of their own sphere, but I think about how the weights of the unknown or the unseen that they have to carry, or what protecting a community looks like. Because every day I wake up thinking about protecting a human. Every day I wake up thinking about protecting and carrying out and helping shape and morph a destiny. Right? How much, like, how crazy and how amazing is it that we've been privileged with the ability to help be a part of shaping somebody's destiny. And I don't just want to do it in act, but I want to do it in thought. I want to do it in speak. I want to do it in writ. I want to do it in language. I want to do it with my hands tied behind my back and eyes closed. Like, I want to do it tap dancing if I have to. And I think that becoming a father has given me the ability to become not only a voice for her, but a voice for all those who need a voice.
If I could jump back in really quickly, there's also a level of, I had this word just circling in my mind, and I hate losing words. Vulnerability that you recognize about yourself, and it takes me back to those old movies where they ask, well, do the soldiers, do they have any family? No? Okay, well then good, we can go. It seems to me that you have more to fight for when you've got a child. But there's also very much for me of fear. And I think I've grown more comfortable speaking on my fears and insecurities because I feel like I need to be able to acknowledge them to be able to help my daughter through her own. That's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned.
Yeah. Brandon, you mentioned like the idea of protecting them. I think about, I wrote poetry before my son, but I didn't pick up really, get serious about it really till about 6 years ago. And then I was all about like, I did more socially conscious poetry, talking about like change, and when I speak about change, how we can improve things in the world around us. And I don't know if I consciously recognized that the desire to change those things were for him to be in a better world. And so I felt like I had a part to play in trying to make it a little bit better for him and for all children that are like him, that has a future. Like, how do we reach them and make this place a more safe space for them to be vulnerable? And Eric, you mentioned vulnerability. So like, how do we become more vulnerable in ourselves, in our house, to allow them to open up and share their thoughts and their feelings? I feel like poetry allows that exploration of vulnerability and the unraveling of yourself and how you move in the world because of them.
So good.
So at times it can be hard when you're like going through things. Are you part of any like fathers organization, any community support where you're like, things are really heavy right now? Because like in the Black community, especially with men, mental health can be a challenging experience. Men don't often feel like they have space to be vulnerable or to get support from community. So do you have any any support when it comes to like fatherhood in those difficult moments?
Yeah, honestly, for me, if the only space that I have, honestly, really outside of like, of course, like therapeutic community, is like my church community. There are a lot of men who are fathers, who father well, who I know personally, who I've been able to build relationship with. Funny story. You mentioned fear. Fear used to be my biggest driving force in my fatherhood, right? And it used to be the fear of being the father my father was, right? The fear of failing in the areas that I watched other people fail at when it comes to fatherhood. The fear of not being a good father to her, the fear of her hating me, the fear used to be one of the hugest driving forces. So I moved a lot of times in fear. And fear is a huge motivator. But it was when I really dove into relationship with my community that I learned there's even a greater motivator, and that motivator is love. So when I moved out of operating in just fear, but moved in love, yes, I was still inspired. Yes, I was still motivated, but it was the community that inspired me to be motivated through love and through the capacity of that to shift, to push, to change, and to grow. Honestly, I have one community, but that community has helped me a lot. Thank you.
I was removed from church. No, wait, that sounds like a harsh sentence, and it's not what I meant at all. The way it sounds. I was not physically removed from church. I was no longer a part of church by the time my daughter was born. So that community to which I dedicated geez, now just about half of my life is no longer really available to me, which is okay. I would have preferred that my own biological father and I had a different relationship so that he could be a resource. But in terms of community, I haven't really experienced community. I've been creating my own relationships with people. One of my partners in Innate Divinity is a father. We have a lot of similarities. We had our child at the same age. It's a lot of interesting things. I have friends whom I'm able to speak with and who listen, and then I've joined a couple Facebook groups just to see what people are talking about, but I don't interact with those enough. I know they're there, and I'm aware that people are making effort and creating spaces to help fathers feel more appreciated, feel like there are answers out there for people who are struggling with things. And both of you mentioned having your children full-time, a primary caregiver. I am not there yet, but that is something I aspire to, possibly. Because my situation is a little bit, well, I don't know your situation, so let me not speak on that, but I can say I wouldn't, in my own situation, I wouldn't take my daughter from mother and that side of family. She's grown, and it's not, I need more time. I need more time with her, So I'm still kind of reaching towards that. So that's also where a lot of my work kind of looks at. How do I feel like I'm doing enough, with the time that I have? How can I improve that time? Or how can I improve my standing in her life and make sure that I'm always a significant voice for her?
Yeah. Well, y'all are jumping ahead a little bit on me. We'll get there. So it's okay. I do want to talk about some of those things, but community. I've been blessed to have uncles and older brother and a lot of healthy masculine role models in my life that have went through things before me to help ease some of the things of being a parent. But then there are organizations like Facebook groups who I belong to a Black Fathers Facebook group, and just knowing that some of the men on there are going through similar experiences at similar age, to know like, okay, it's not me that's doing something wrong, or like my child isn't behaving abnormally. Other parents are experiencing these same things, and so kind of seeing that gives me the permission to like relax a little bit and be like, okay, we'll get through this. Whatever this is, whatever's coming up, we'll get through it. Others have, and there's support out there for the difficult times when you need it. So I think community is really important, but it is hard sometimes for men to like find that right like group of other men that are also positive, strong, role models that you can associate with and do maybe family activities with your children. So I want to go back to the part about fathers. Has your relationship with your own father shown up in your writing?
Absolutely. And I would probably question the veracity of any poet who writes about their experience as a parent and they don't ever include or at least take into account or consideration their own experience as a child. as a son or a daughter. My father taught me a lot indirectly, as most parents do. You know, you learn by what you see, not necessarily as much what you're told implicitly or explicitly rather. But I have certain memories of my father that I choose to focus on and try and ignore some of the other. One of the things that I do remember that's a really positive memory for me is he used to he was in the military, so he was usually shaved, but he would let it grow to maybe a day or two, and it'd just be a little stubble. And I remember the sound of it scratching on my shoulder or my neck when he would hug me. And I'm 47, and I still remember how that felt. And it makes me think of how can I create little experiences like that that my daughter will always hold on to and be able to take away something positive, a positive memory of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yeah, my first poetry book, This Little Boy, is pretty much a story of a young boy who grew up in a place where he felt like he didn't belong, trying to understand the story of how to go from upside down to right side up. So majority of my pieces are about my childhood, right? So I have it breaks it down from a little boy to a teenager to a man to a father. So there's a good handful of my poems that are about my father. What I haven't done, and I'm trying to figure out now in this time frame, to write stories of healing versus stories of trauma. And I think a lot of my stories that I told were the stories of trauma or my experiences. And on the other side of that healing journey, like, it's been so different for me to try to figure out how to write those poems, and I want to. So I think I'm in a space sometimes where, yes, absolutely, my poetry has been affected by my relationship with my father. Yet now I want to show him a different level of value and appreciation that I don't think that I was able to in some of the primary times of my writing. And the reason why I want to do that too is to show her that there's always opportunity for healing, and that a story doesn't have to stay the same. And I think that I think I have to be able to do that. So I'm working through that.
Thank you for that. I tried to write a poem about my father for a long time. He passed away when I was almost 7 years old. For the last 2 years, I've been trying to get it out. I couldn't get the poem out. It wasn't ready. But thinking about it and opening up and trying to be more vulnerable to that experience, and thinking about how him not being there to do a lot of activities with me, how much it made me want to do those activities with my son. And so I think of the time where I had to teach myself how to swim, but when my son was about 7 or 8, I was able to enroll him in swim class and go there and be in swim class with him and help guide him and teach him and have that moment together so that he would be able to learn to swim. So that's just one of multiple memories of activities I get to do with him, gingerbread houses, every December, a variety of things. So for me, my dad not being there really made me want to be able to kind of have those experiences with my son, but also go through them myself a little bit. And so I don't write about that too much, but I'm trying to open up more to that and be vulnerable in that space.
Thank you for sharing that.
The Eric, I know your daughter's a little young. Does she recognize that you're a writer? Does she know that's something you do?
I don't know what it means to her, but she knows that a book exists with pictures of her and daddy, pictures of her as a baby. She knows that I wrote it. I don't know what it means for her, though. I remember the day that I showed her. I'd written the book and I kept it secret, and I ordered a copy. And the day it got there, it wasn't because I had to wait until the next time I had her. I had it behind my back, we're playing, and said, "Look, I've got something for you." And I set up my camera so I could record this, and I watch it from time to time. Because she loved playing with books. But what's interesting, there'd be like a coloring book here and Ta-Nehisi Coates here, and she'd always reach for Ta-Nehisi Coates. They'd be flipping through, or Claudia Rankin, or Danette. So I have all these beautiful pictures of my daughter pretending to read these heady poetry collections. I'm like, that's my girl, right? But now the day I handed it to her, I said, "Look," and I turned it around. There's a picture of us on the front, and then a picture of her on the back. She looked at it, and then she turned it around, and then she recognized herself. She goes, "Ah!" Couldn't even speak. She's hugging the book. And I treasure stuff like that, you know. And I'm trying to be excited about books. I don't have to be excited. I'm definitely excited. She used to go through and grab a handful of books off the bookshelf, walk over to the bed, and just lay them out one by one, and then flip through. So I'm trying to instill love of books in her, but I also want her to feel like it's personal for her. So hopefully, when she reads this one, she will see herself in it, but a step beyond just simply having something that has her name and pictures in it and messages from that, I want her to get into the practice of being able to see herself in anything she reads, so that she learns how to grow, you know?
Thank you for
that. No, she definitely knows I'm a poet. Like she tells all her friends. She takes my business cards to school. She said, "Dad, I need more cards," and because she knows I'm a poet and have a clothing line, and she tells all her friends, "My dad is a poet," and she's been to multiple of my poetry shows and watched me perform, and she knows some of my poems by heart. Like she'll be out there reciting my poem, and like she knows part of the lines. So she absolutely knows that I'm a poet. And I think that she also understands what poetry is, right? She understands the context of what it is and the power of telling a story. And she's a singer and songwriter. So she writes her own songs. And, the reality that's poetry, right? She's writing poetry to a melody. And I ain't gotta say nothing. I'm just like, my baby is a poet, you know what I mean? And it makes me extremely proud, and it's really a phenomenal thing. So yeah, I don't know when she started realizing that I was a poet. I don't know, like when it clicked for her that, oh, this is poetry. But at 4, okay, she said at 4. Well, wow. But yeah, so I mean that makes sense. That's around when she started like coming to shows and stuff. But
cool. I think for me, well, pandemic, right? So pandemic happens. My son does school at home, but I'm also like in school. I'm doing CLI at the time, so we share the living room. And he's on his Xbox, and I'm like in a Zoom reading. And so we had like maybe 2 years of that where it's like, man, Dad every day is on these Zooms, like writing poetry or reading the poetry. And I, try and give the prompt him, like, like come check it out, write something with me. He's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, okay, not gonna force you. But when school opened back up and he was able to go to school, he was telling all his teachers, he's like, my dad writes books, like, you know, you can find it online. And so he's really proud to share that with the teachers. And so, like, conversely, I'm like, oh, you know, like, he's proud of me that I'm doing this. Like, he sees me pursuing a dream. And I feel like even though he may not recognize it now, as he gets older, he'll understand permission to pursue whatever it is he's passionate about. Like, if dad can go out there and try and make his dreams a reality, I can go out there and make whatever my dream is a reality too. And to me, that's huge, to instill that idea in him. So that's super important for me. But that brings up the issue of like time, right? Like, and it was mentioned earlier, like finding the time, how to spend more time with them. How do you balance that? The writing, the work, and spending time with them. I know, Brandon, when we were at the Pomona fair, you know, I saw you there, you had your daughter with you. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I've been there. I've been like, oh, you gotta come with me to shows. No one's gonna be able to watch you. Like, I know you may not be interested in this, but like, come see what I do and like, you know, experience that. So how do you balance time?
You know, the balance of time is interesting because what I try to do that I don't know if she understands yet is I'm trying to share time, right? Like, this doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to dad's thing, but it could be like, we're going to something together. And what you get to do is experience dad doing this. And I want that kind of understanding. And it might take more time. You know, even when I told her, hey, we're going to this event, she's like, we got to go to another event. Like, I'm like, yes, baby. But, you know, my desire is hopefully one day she gets the context of like, and I get to be a part of this experience and like that similar thing. And it was making me cry, man, when you were saying it, like I'm hopefully giving her the license to know that she can pursue anything she wants to do. And like watching me, you know, sit on stages or go to places or watch people like be like, oh, stand up and give standing ovations for her father. Like, you know what I mean? Like that one day crowds and masses are going to do the same for her. And I like, so the time, making the time, you know, I tried to create the time in what we do, but it's hard, to be honest. Poetry sometimes takes the back seat. Like I don't know the last time I finished a whole poem. You know what I mean? Like I write pieces of poetry all the time, right? But I don't know the last time I finished a whole poem because there's work, there's picking her up, there's dinner, there's checking the homework, there's making sure she showered, there's ironing her clothes, there's me trying to make sure that I'm, you know, going to the gym, then there's sleep. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes on accident, but because it happens. So I mean, I don't remember the last time. Like I've blocked out in my day to write poetry, but sometimes I just be speed putting over that time. I be like, oh, there's my alarm to write poetry. I'm going to sleep. Like so, sometimes, yeah, I'm not doing well in that area.
It's a balancing act. It's challenging. At times you don't have the art has to take a backseat, and that's part of it. Well, I mentioned like 6 years ago, like I started back. It was after grad school because it was like work, grad school, and him. There wasn't space in my life for art at the time, for poetry at that time to create. And so after grad school, when it was just work and him, it was a little bit of time to create. And then during the pandemic, it was like, oh, I got a lot more time to create. So I'm gonna, like, people are like, why do you write so much? It's like, because I have the chance right now. Like, you know, and also he's gotten a little bit older, so I don't have to do, like, you know, you can iron your own shirts, you can do, you know. So with that, it opens up a little bit more time. But also recently, he came to a show at Sims Library of Poetry to perform, and it had been a couple of years since he's seen me, because of the pandemic, seen me like perform in person. And so he remembers the performance before and the level I was at then, and now, like 3 years later, the growth. He's like, "Oh, you're pretty good at this now." Okay, yeah, that was cool. So then that was another proud moment. Like, oh, I get the youth approval. But Eric, what do you have to say about time?
So I have a different experience with time. I don't have to struggle to find time to write. I have more time without her than I do with. So the balance for me ends up being, I miss my daughter tremendously when she's not around. I have to motivate myself to write through what I'm experiencing, what I'm dealing with, There were times where she has been on stage with me. I'm in the middle of performing, she was to walk up, because her mother was kind enough to bring her to some of my shows at the time. And I value those moments, and I don't have her when I have a show, unless, in fact, I don't even take shows if I've got her. I don't accept shows because it's such little time. When you're mentioning about during the pandemic, when everything went online, and we were doing Zooms and Instagram Live events, there were times that I would have something like that come up when she was there. And she is still walking the room and when we lean in the camera and say hi to the people.
I remember one of those.
Right? She's adorable, right? Frequently we'll be seen walking around in the back. But she likes to sing too. And she wants to make her voice known. So that's a balance, but that's a fun balance for me. I feel like I don't want to do anything that's going to kill her spirit or discourage her from being herself when she's with me, or at all, period. But of course, especially not when she's with me. And I want her to have positive associations with the work that I do. I'm very careful about trying not to push her away. Those are some of the most, I think that's the first time I'm really saying that. Wow. Those are some of the most profound moments for me, I think, in acknowledging my time with her. Unless I'm right, I do have a poem. I've got a few poems, but one I've written about the time I'm not with her. I was at work. I was working at Amazon before I got hired as a teacher. I was working 5 days in the district and then the weekends on Amazon. Come on, no more of that. I used to drive around Amazon writing poems, a little line here and a line there, right? And one day I stayed late to get in a little bit of overtime, just to make a little bit more money, just to catch up on these bills. And I'm thinking, why am I accepting overtime when I have this little child at home waiting for me, hopefully she's at home. And the poem is called Overtime. It's a ghazal. And if you're not familiar with the ghazal, it repeats whatever the word is you're using. And in this case, the word was overtime. So I'm using it at the end of every other line. And it's a challenge to see how many different ways can I use the phrase overtime so it doesn't sound like I'm always saying overtime. You hear how tired you are of the word overtime now? The challenge in that poem is to make it interesting. And how many ways can you make this word or phrase relatable? So I've done a lot of thinking about what my time with my daughter and without my daughter looks like. And how can I make it intentional both ways?
Yeah, time like speeds up, it feels like, because they grow so fast that it's like, even if you're there every day, spending the time with them, like pandemic every day, it still felt super fast. Like it still felt like we missed out on stuff. Like, when did you get this tall? Like it just happens like before your eyes. And so like time is, you try to carve it out. And I remember writing too, like when I was working for the county, It was like county, off at like, 5-ish, and then pick him up at 5:30-ish and home and dinner. And so I didn't have much time to write. So I would write on my lunch break or during my 10-minute breaks at the county, just like you said, through lines, just scribble them down, whatever I could to keep going. This is going to be the last question.
Really quickly, if I may, very short. That's a very significant question. I think it's also important to think about how your child perceives the time together. And I know I've become increasingly aware that my daughter is aware of how much time we've missed. She does little things, and I'm like, but you're not a baby. She's like, no, but I missed that. I'm thinking, So I just think it's really interesting that our children can show us something about how they are experiencing the relationship just through their understanding of the time.
Yeah, they pick up on that. Yeah. Okay, last question. What, in your opinion, do you think is the most challenging part of fatherhood, and what do you think is the most rewarding part?
Bills.
That's just life. That's just...
The most challenging part of fatherhood to me has been understanding that I'm raising a whole different personality. And what I mean by that is they are their own entire person.
Yes.
So I have a context for the person that I believe that they can be. I have an understanding on the person that I believe that they should be. I have an understanding of the person that I was and the experiences that were all mine. Yet at the same time, they are still their own entire person. And as much as I will, want, and try my very best to explain and express like I'm doing this because I understand, there's still a capacity of understanding that I just could never grasp because they are who they are. And I think the most difficult part is being the best father when I don't have it all, when I don't have all the answers, when I make a mistake, when I know I'm wrong, when she shows me that I'm wrong, when I know I'm right, but she still believes I'm wrong. Like being able to love her without her holding resentment. There's this, I don't know, like this idea that I have, you remember like the old, like stories or fairy tales where you have these princesses who were locked in these dungeons that were protected by these dragons and things like that, right? And a lot of times they were locked there because it was for their own protection. And even though contextually it was, it's horrible, I never want her to feel like I'm locking who she is away, even in the name of protection or in the name of love. And I think that's the hardest part.
I got you on that one. I'll let Eric jump in, but I do have a response to that.
I don't have much to say. What you just said, getting out of the way, that takes a lot of awareness, I think, and selflessness. You have to recognize, no, that's you, Eric. That's not an issue. You don't need to make it a problem. So getting out of your own way and then allowing them space enough to grow. I think you said it best.
Okay, yeah. I mean, expanding on that idea, I think as they get older, like how much freedom and how much constraint, or not constraint, but how much guidance, guardrails you have to have up for them, and how open do you release it as they continue to get older and as they get more freedom and allow them to be the people that they're going to be. So I think that's the most challenging, but also the most rewarding when you recognize like, oh, like they're confident because they're loved, they're safe, they have a place to be themselves, but also there's, they know that you're in their corner, that you have their back, and as a parent, and that, you know, you'll do all these things to help them, whatever it is, you know, tutoring or help with homework. You're there to give them that support and that guidance that helps them be free to be who they are. And there was another part about I'm trying to remember.
I be talking, bro, so I don't know.
Being the allowing them to be who they're going to be, and the reward is when they show you, that your influence has been part of that. Like when they're kind, because they know you're a kind person.
Yeah.
You know, so they'll pick up on that from you.
I'll tell us, so to piggyback off the reward, one of the biggest rewards is a small lesson. She doesn't really realize, I told her, but she doesn't really realize how big of a deal this was for me. Last week, I picked her up from school. She's like, Dad, I gotta tell you something. I'm like, what? She's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna tell you. I'm like, what happened? She's like, okay. So I was playing a game, and oh my goodness. I'm like, okay, just tell me the story. She's like, I accidentally said a cuss word. I was like, oh, Lord. She's like, but no, listen. She's like, it was an accident. And she broke down the whole story. And then she's like, you know, my friends were like, why tell your parents? You know, they'll never know. And I was like, I just wanted to tell you. And the truth is, I would have never found out. No teacher told me. I didn't get a letter home. I didn't get a notification in my messages. I didn't get a slip. She didn't even get in trouble. You get what I mean? The teacher said, oh, you know, next time you'll get in trouble. Nothing. But she decided that she honored me and honored the truth enough to be honest, even in the midst of, and you know, that's small, but it's a big deal for me because it showed me her character. In a time where I'm like, man, am I doing good?
Yeah.
Like, am I doing okay? You know, like for her to be able to show me her character, like in a moment like that, it was a big deal for me, you know, because I don't always feel like I'm doing the best, right? You know, or like I wonder, like, am I doing? Am I doing okay?
Please tell me this is on your.
Oh my goodness.
Beautiful. Why didn't I bring my daughter?
That's always the thing, right? Like, are we doing enough? Like, we as parents, like, are we doing enough?
This just isn't just a testament to her character. This is also a testament to your relationship that you cultivated together. And I think that's another thing that's very hard to know until moments like that.
Yeah.
They trust you to come and tell you something they didn't have to say, but just let you know you're doing a good job. You're doing it.
I appreciate it. And, you know, so it was a big deal for me, and you know, it makes me, you know, feel you know, comfortable and confident. Like, you know, we were saying there's balances, there's rewards, there's challenges. You know, I say this thing, like, you can either be a safe. It's hard because you're balancing the idea of being a safety rope or a safety net, right? A safety rope, you know, it keeps them in line. You know, they can only go so far. A safety net, they can go wherever they want, but when they fall, you'll catch them. And I think there's such a balance between that.
Yeah, that's great. I think about, they had lunch with dads in middle school before pandemic, so it was about 6th grade. And so I go to have lunch with them or bring them like some in and out. And while we eat lunch, and while I'm there, I'm getting ready to leave. And I think the assistant principal comes over, and he was like, I just wanted to tell you that, you're raising a fine young man. He found a wallet like earlier today. He turned it in. There was money in it. He turned it into the office so they could get to the right person. And he never mentioned it to me. He never said like, "Hey, Dad, I did this thing," to like get points or anything. He just did it because he's like, that was the right thing to do. And to hear that from the administration, be like, yeah, you did this thing. It's like, yeah, I'm doing a good job. And then, it's moments like that, as they grow up and they become older, they may remember and tell you about later, like, yeah, this was a big deal for me when you did these things. And you're like, wow, like I'm helping raise a whole human, and it's an incredible responsibility, but so rewarding.
I commend you for raising your son that way. I personally train my daughter to bring me any money that she finds. I just think that's important.
That's funny.
Yeah. Let's. I do want to give you a chance to read, like, a poem about your child. What do we got? 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think.
10 minutes?
Yeah, let's if you need to.
Okay. Okay. So if you got one.
Well, since it's never a good idea to follow when thunder speaks, I think I'm gonna go ahead and read something first. This is in my book, The Beauty of Dragons. I haven't read this in years. In fact, I wrote this before she was born. It's got two alternative titles: Flowers, Bears, and Candles, and also Pretty Things. To all the best parts of me, Rosalie, Kira, Mikkel, I don't know that you will be a girly girl covered in bows and frills and all things pink, but I know I will treat you like a princess every day. Shower you with love and affection, court you with flowers from the moment you can understand how similar is your name to a rose. How precious are you both? How equally delicate your heart to velvet petals, not to be peeled and plucked, but protected, allowed to flourish, a treasure to be admired. Your hypoallergenic pillow will be covered with plush bears. Your favorite teddy pulled tight while you sleep, sharing your heartbeat because the only thing you know about this world is the steady pulse of mommy's chest calms you, and the strength of daddy's arms and voice soothe your soul while you sleep, dreaming of pretty things. I will teach you how to recognize when someone loves you, and I'm sure I will struggle with finding a balance between giving you pretty things and showing you what it really means to be adored. Lavish you with gifts, knowing I could never repay the gift you are. I will also have to teach you the beauty of dragons, that roses have thorns, and the fluffiest puppy conceals needlepoint teeth in good intentions. They come disguised. Sometimes pretty things hurt. Sometimes pretty things are dragon wings, shimmery and gossamer in flight, beating soft against the endless blue, so you never see the flaming cauldron roiling in the belly, set to pass over sickle and scythe, rows of terrible teeth. Baby, some men come as dragons on beating wings. A beautiful death who mask pungent decay in custom cologne might remind you of candles. Smoky mesquite and sandalwood charm, a hint of vanilla, just might take you back to flickering lights on stormy nights. Power out so daddy made games over candlelit dinner. Scruffy neck-beard hugs tickled you to laughter's poem, danced his hands across the ceiling just for you, to soothe your soul just so you would not be afraid of the dark. But I need you to understand that the shadow within the heart of man is the only darkness daddy fears for you. On my way to work, I saw a man standing on the sidewalk, staring at a memorial pile of flowers, bears, and candles. And I prayed, I never lived to regret bringing you, my pretty thing, into a world equal parts beauty and pain.
Thank you for that one, Eric. Appreciate that. I'm gonna read too, because Brandon got away with those words. This one is How to Raise a Boy. I want to give you all I had and everything I didn't. That is to say, healthy love, a father's love, daily encouragement, affirmations of your potential, support for your dreams. Share words that sink concrete foundations, the idea of inherent worthiness in the pursuit of your heart's desire. But I had no clue what it sounded like. The message stumbles and fumbles out of a clumsy mouth, tripping tongue, speaks in what feels like a fraudulent voice, someone else's speech pattern. I never learned how to believe the sweet language for myself. I don't know who I was trying to convince of its truth, you or me. So I did what I saw growing up, gave you what I know, showed up to your sports games, cheering louder than any other parent. I was there for all your back-to-school nights and every parent-teacher conference with promises that we will figure it all out together. Bullies and bad grades, heartbreaks and first dates. I cooked your favorite food for breakfast Sunday mornings and read you books each night, even after you could do it yourself. We haven't always seen eye to eye, especially as you've grown closer to looking me in the eyes. But I wish that my presence and character could be enough to set the example for you. That you would pick up ethics by association, discover a sense of moral masculinity in me that more than my DNA would rub off on you. Only time will tell if I failed or succeeded. What I know is I tried to be tough and gentle, hoping you would not become the rock or the window, but simply a reflection of yourself, God's miracle. The thing is, life never tells us how to raise a boy.
I guess I'll go next. Clap it up one more time for these two amazing poets, everybody. This poem is entitled Ode to My Heiress. I've birthed the responsibility that I never thought I'd be ready for. So worried that these hands, calloused from clawing out of my own despair, would scar you, carrying you away from yours. Hands like magnets, bold enough to make my palms meet, hoping these prayers can prevent prayers and still leave space to rock you to sleep, fearful that this battered man wouldn't be delicate enough to care for his first flower. Dandelion to this rainstorm. Angst, whirlwind my emotions, blinding the eye of this tornado, trembling on my crane arms, folding under pressure, origami to the weight your life carries, yet still honored at the fact that heaven chose this troubled Tennessean to be the titan after your destiny. You were like a diamond in the rough. No. You're like a toy at the bottom of a Cracker Jacks box. No, you are like oxygen. Because even if I take you for granted, I can't live without you. I've taken you for granted and not honored the moments I get to breathe. You're more than just a seed. You are like a butterfly that flaps its wings into rainbows that lead to pots of gold in homes where unicorns roam. You are the abracadabra to my greatest trick. And tricks are for kids, so I'll pull a rabbit out of every hat I can just to make sure that everything you deserve you can get, like your mother does, and my mother did. You are like sunshine after days of rain. You are the reason I know that heaven exists. You are elegance with a warrior's heartbeat. You are a dream worth fighting for, and I'll be the first in the ring. I want a Brown versus Board, the two halves of every one of your separately but equal broken hearts. I'll volunteer as tribute, so your love never catches fire, nor never it loses its hunger due to his games. I'll be doctor to your pain, until your first love turns into what's his name? I may never get his name right, but I just hope I never have to remind him of mine. I want to play patty cake until my fingers hurt. I want to hurt every demon you point your fingers towards. I will tell you not to be afraid of the dark. I will send angels to make their mark on every dream turned nightmare. I want to beat up your nightmares and every shadow that comes out of your closet. I won't be perfect, but in all purpose, I'll magic erase every mistake you'll make. I'll be your tissue when you are sick. I will resuscitate your faith when you're flatlined and hopeless. I'll be the bridge over the moat to your insecurities. He's already sent a king who sacrificed for your life. So I'll only have to be knight for every dragon that attempts to keep you dungeon. I want to be your first Prince Charming, first date, first dance, first hand, given to the last man you'll spend your life with. I want to spend my life loving you, because love covers a multitude. And this inheritance is the greatest gift that my heiress can look forward to.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Thank you both so much for reading, for being here today, for being vulnerable and talking about, fatherhood and writing. Appreciate you, both of you.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for sharing the space with me. Thank you for being a father that, I could follow, So thank you for sure.
Thank you for the vision to have the forethought to put something like this together. Yeah.
And thank you to Katie and Inlandia for, supporting Blacklandia and, seeing the importance of putting this group together, and as well as UCR and all the partners.
I also want to thank everyone who had the willingness to come out.
Yes,
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All
We appreciate
out
you.
there.
Yeah, can we give these guys another round of applause or snaps or all of the above? So thank you all very much for being here. And if you want to know more about Inlandia events, please grab a flyer on your way out. We have lots of free writing workshops, so you can learn how to write like these guys, but in your own voice. All right, thank you all. And there are books on the table.